Um, so Becky told me that the minutes didn't get recorded last time. Did she?
And public safety.
So,
I have minutes in here.
okay, great.
Do you not have your facts? I asked Doug to put this for me because I was having problems with my computer. So,
I was too.
this is the packet if you want to look through it. I was able to get in tonight. So. Do you need? He's got it. Okay,
Do you know?
no, I'm good. I was having problems with my computer, and now it's the amazing IT department helped me. So I'm good.
Well, the time is now 6 o'clock. I will bring this committee to order. And I first want to extend a welcome to all of our new council members. So welcome to your first official committee meeting. We'll now entertain or did everybody have a chance to read the minutes that are on file? Yes. Entertain a motion to,
I'll make motion.
I'll second.
Melissa made a motion, Mary seconded it. All in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we have our agenda. Did everybody get a chance to take a look at our agenda for the evening? Entertain a motion to approve our agenda.
So moved.
Second.
The motion is made and seconded. All in favor of accepting tonight's agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so we have our agenda for the evening. Chief, thank you for being our first.
Welcome. Thank you, Councilor Tesoro. Good evening, Council. I'm Brian Harris, your fire chief. It's a pleasure to meet the new members this evening, and look forward to working with you here in the future. And but before we get into the future, we're going to revisit the past here. Some events that you might be familiar with that occurred December of 2025. I just want to present to you just a very brief overview of kind of what took place with the flood event that we had the week of December 8th. That it really affected greater Skagit County and the city of Mount Vernon. It was a record flood that reached 37.73 feet. We're going to talk a little bit about our response, what really began as a normal type flood for us that we experience often in our area, quickly grew beyond that and ended up experiencing really an unprecedented response from the state and local governments in mitigating this flood in the response. And it's something that we have not seen here before. Lessons learned, we still have a ways to go before we can really get into the lessons learned. We still need to do hot washes, debriefs, not only amongst ourselves, but with county, is really the big debrief that we need to have as at the county level, and then in between our EOC and the county's EOC. So what I have laid out here for you is a series of slides with the Skagit River. It's a Skagit River gauge near Mount Vernon is what it's called. And if you don't know where it's located, it's on the north end of town, just east of the Riverside Bridge. And that's the gauge that they're talking about. I just want to lay out for you just kind of the time of when these predictions came out, so you can see and have reference of how quickly this escalated and our preparation for the flood event. So over the weekend on the 6th and 7th of December, city staff, including myself, which is really Public Works Director Chris Phillips and Blaine Chesterfield and myself, we really monitor the river and what it's doing. And basically what that is we get daily updates from the Weather Service, and we're constantly getting onto the feed and looking at the river forecast. So on Monday morning, this is what we were looking at as a prediction of a 33.67 foot first crest. We knew that a double bump was coming, and so we began early preparations in planning for opening emergency operations center for the city of Mount Vernon. And at this level, we don't usually do a full blown operation in opening the EOC. We would do like a level 2 is what we call it, in conjunction with our emergency plan. But really, it's getting together the core people who have main responsibilities for ensuring that the flood wall is erected, and then just sharing communication internally through our teams groups that we use in the city. So that was pretty much the original plan, but our decision point is when the Riverside gauge hits 32 feet, and we know at 32 feet at the Riverside gauge that we start to have minor flooding towards commercial cold storage downtown on the south end. So that's when we really take a look at and dive into, do we think this is going to get higher? Do we think it's going to be lower? What are we hearing? What's the chatter? And we had decided that, yeah, we're going to throw that flood wall up. It's early in the season. We knew there was a big storm coming, and we decided that this is a good opportunity to do that. This is the first time that we utilized the EOC space that we built in Fire Station 2. And in so doing so, I had asked IT to come out early on that day on Monday so we could start planning and laying out how are we going to lay out and set everything up inside the Emergency Operations Center, and then talk about the desired equipment needed to make it function properly and get that layout set up.
Chief, if I could.
Yes.
Second. EOC, Emergency Operations Center.
Yes, thank you. Sorry about
IT,
that.
information.
IT, information technology. Yeah. Okay. So this is still Monday. It's later in the afternoon. It's at 1:15. We can still see it's still, the river is looking about the same, but now they're saying that the second bump is going to be higher than the first. So not a whole lot has changed in our planning. It's just the prediction of the river had changed a little bit. Initial actions for the planned level 3 activation for the Mount Vernon EOC activation follows the city's comprehensive emergency management plan. So that prediction stayed through the day, and then I woke up in the morning to see pretty much the same thing on the 9th. The flood wall installation was occurring as planned. We got an early start on that on Monday to give our folks the ample time to get it set up. We had prepared an emergency declaration on the executive end. So in the event that the flood was going to cause more problems, we'd have the emergency declaration already in place. Just makes the transition smoother. The real reason for that is so we make ourselves eligible for state and federal funding as well. So to have that in place early on is important. So this is when things really started to change. So later that afternoon on Tuesday, we went from 36 feet to 41 feet, 41 and a half feet, which is a significant jump and totally changed the dynamic of what we were thinking was going to happen. In the sense that 41 and a half feet, there isn't a dike in Skagit County that can hold back 41 and a half feet of water. So after that forecast came out, I received a phone call from the DEM director shortly after, asked me if I can come down to their EOC that evening to have a meeting. Met with Julie De La Sada. We had a conversation about the next steps. We determined that it was going to be important to have a meeting with our elected officials at 8 o'clock that evening, which was the time we determined to do that. And so we held a meeting that Mayor Donovan was involved in that. And basically DEM and the Dike District representative and the Drainage District representative pretty much laid out for us that there isn't anything that they can do about this. We need to get out of the way and really think about evacuating. Also, we were already at our limits from a county perspective of staffing their emergency operations center. So they were requesting to bring in a type 3 team to help augment, I'll say, the upper echelon or the leadership portion of the emergency operations center. And basically, that just brings more people in to help carry the load, because most of their folks are on the operational side, and they were needing more, I'll say, administrators or branch directors at that point in time to help get things done. So that decision was made. The next morning, we woke up to a prediction of 42.29 feet. So basically another foot that they're saying it's gonna get up to potentially. We were still on target with the flood wall. Everything was looking fine with that. But really what we needed to talk about was evacuations. What's the plan for evacuation? When do we notify people? How do we get them out of harm's way? Who do we need to notify? Critical infrastructure that needs to be identified. And really it's like, where's the water going and where's it gonna come from? And then moving our operation, which was more of a 10-hour, 12 operation, to a 24-hour operation. So those were the concerns, the considerations that we were taking into place. So pretty stressful in the sense that nobody had a good idea really of what the river was going to do, because it literally could have breached anywhere. My own personal opinion is I was never very concerned with the flood wall itself, because it's designed to be higher than everything else. So my concern for our citizens was West Mount Vernon. That was our biggest risk. And also our residents in South Mount Vernon, should the dike break down lower on the Skagit, potential for backfill to work its way back north. Not a fast moving flood coming from the south, but a slow rising flood that could potentially have moved its way all the way up to Kincaid Street. So those were the big concerns at that point in time. We worked diligently with our TV10. I also had my administrative assistant, and we brought in Ricardo Gomez, who's a Spanish-speaking fire investigator, public educator for us, Dave Shackleton from the police department to work and help us as PIO officers and help get us information out to the community through social media, city's website, things like that. The result of all of that ended up being a flood that crested at 37.73 feet. While not that, but had it have been that, it would have been much worse for the residents of the county, potentially the citizens of Mount Vernon. So while we did hit a record flood, we were lucky that it came in literally 5.5 feet under than what they were telling us that it could have been. The other issue with that prediction is that we learned that was a conservative estimate by about 10%. So that could have swung 10% higher. We got lucky and it came in lower. So the flood wall, thanks to our Public Works Director, Chris Phelps, was proactive in initiating the installation of the flood wall, which we started early on Monday morning on the 8th, giving staff ample time to install the wall. He was probably frustrated with me hounding him over the weekend, because in 2021, I knew it took us a lot longer to put up the flood wall. But what I forgot is that the freeboard is the boards that sit on top of the brick wall. We had to custom cut all of those to size because we had not used it yet. And so I had forgotten that we did that. We weren't gonna have to do it this time. So he reminded me that we got it under control. We have plenty of time. We don't have to make the cuts. So it was installed quite quickly. And just like in 2021, the flood wall was a huge success in holding back the floodwaters in the Skagit River and did exactly what it was designed to do. These are just some photos of the river. These are, I believe, there's part of the setup there, but some of the others were taken on Saturday on the 13th. Where the floodwaters had already started to recede a little bit. And this thanks to Candy for providing these photos. So evacuation. The evacuation notices and how that went about, it was really kind of frustrating in the sense that we were having significant communication issues between the county's emergency operations center and really everybody else. But I'll speak from my perspective from our emergency operations center. It was by accident that I found out when the evacuation notices were going to go out for that evening, because I was up at their EOC for a completely different reason, which was basically trying to find out what the shelter statuses were and how many were they getting in place, and then overheard a conversation of when the evacuation notices were going to go out. So ours was scheduled, the city of Mount Vernon was scheduled for 8 o'clock. And the intent is to start up East River early in the afternoon and then start working their way west, which theoretically isn't a bad idea because you don't want to overwhelm evacuation routes with people flooding them all at the same time. However, the timing at when the flood was going to peak would have put, from my perspective, citizens of Mount Vernon, we've been hearing about a record flood of 42 feet coming, or at work, probably don't have the day off, coming home, not knowing what to do because no information was being put out, and then getting an alert on their cell phone that says evacuate now at 8 o'clock at night was not optimal. So having had dialogue with our group and our EOC and our command staff, we decided that we were going to put that out earlier. We shared that back with county EOC, so they knew it was going to happen. And so we disseminated that information out early through social media, tying folks back to the city's webpage and sharing that information out. And I want to say that went out around 5 o'clock in the evening, off the top of my head. Our post got inundated quickly. The map that we had linked to it was crashing because so many people were hitting it. We had over 1,500 or 1,000 hits in an hour on the map. So we were getting feedback that people were frustrated because they would say that it wasn't working. Well, there was getting so many hits from the public that it was just taking longer to load. So that was kind of an issue for us for a little while. We were able to respond back to comments and social media, let people know, just give it a minute, it'll work. Even my spouse was sending me text, your map isn't working. It works, trust me, just give it a minute. And then she's, okay, it's working. So it did work. And I think that putting that out, people were so thirsty for knowledge. We just recently started our Facebook page last year in the late summer, early fall. We probably had 32 or 300 followers. We're like 5,000 now because of this event. And we were pushing out so much information through social media that we were getting an incredible amount of shares. And so just to kind of briefly, like how the evacuations went, when we sent our notice out through Facebook, Governor Ferguson followed it and shared it, and then called Skagit County's EOC and told them to send out the evacuation notices. And that took about 45 minutes for that to happen. And then that's why the county put theirs out and everybody got an alert on their cell phone who was in the 100-year floodplain. That's how fast that went. So there's the power of social media. More and more people are consuming their critical information through social media, which we found. We had 26 press contacts, not including whatever the mayor fielded directly through his cell phone. But we had 26 contacts come in through our EOC. The website had 131,000 hits for the flood page that was created. The evacuation notice post that we sent out had over 500,000 views. For some reason, the flood wall seepage went viral and had over 577,000 views.
Because you know it wasn't working.
Yeah,
Right.
well,
The
yeah,
wall
because
wasn't
people
working.
thought it wasn't
Okay, yeah,
working.
like-
But, so that was very interesting. Closing the Division Street Bridge, over 150,000, and return home with caution was just almost 28,000. So I think just seeing these numbers reiterates to me the importance of having people with the skill set and the capability to get this messaging out, and how important it is to have those folks inside our emergency operations center so they can hear information real time, start making preparations and make these slides that are ready to go, and have the face-to-face communication back and forth to say, is this a message we want to send out, verify it, and be able to give timelines and when we want to make all of that occur. We use the fire department as the primary, but police was also basically sharing our content because they have several thousand more followers than the fire department did at that time, and I think they still do. But so we wanted to make sure the information was getting out and reaching as many people as possible. One of the things I learned was how many people outside of Mount Vernon were concerned about where they were in a 100-year floodplain, reaching back to us asking what they should do. So it wasn't something that I initially thought about. It's like, oh, this is for the citizens of Mount Vernon, but it was so much more than that. So it's just things for me to think about next time as we move forward. Operational challenges, just some small things right here, right now. And I didn't want to get into a lot because we haven't had a formal hot wash yet. And that's where you do the deep dive and you really start flushing things out. But like I said before, this is the first time that we utilize Station 2 as Emergency Operations Center after the remodel. It included new personnel fulfilling key leadership roles, including myself. I have not been the incident commander in our EOC for the city of Mount Vernon yet. That was done by my predecessor and my ones before that. But lucky for me, I got to witness a lot of that as an operations section chief inside of our EOC and been exposed to it. So that was helpful. This was Chief Chrisman's first time on the law branch side. It's the mayor's first time as our executive director. So there's a few firsts there. Some challenges, predicted flooding level of over 42 feet that our levee system is not designed to hold back. It's just not. And it's interesting that this is the second time that we've seen something like this in a 5-year span, 4-year span. So it makes me wonder, is this going to be a regular thing moving forward? Also, integration of the type 1 response team that we received from the state into the county's EOC, interfacing with them, communications, and continuity of response was really, really difficult. And it's not, I can't say it's any one person, one thing fault. Because Skagit County DEM, they have 5 people that work inside DEM. And so they're not staffed to manage it. All of our EOC operations staff are people that already have other jobs inside our city. And so this is something that they have skill, desire, and expertise in that they can do. So we bring them in. But emergency management has historically not been well funded, no matter where you go. So it's not uncommon. But transitioning from a local team to bringing in a type 3 team to bringing in a type 1 team, which is the same kind of large scale team that you would bring in on a forest fire. That's the level of service that we had here in the Skagit County for this event, which we've never had that before. But it presented itself a lot of difficulty in communication and getting the right communication in and out. And it highlighted the importance of us having staff embedded in their EOC. If we did that for one day, because that's all I had staff for, was to do that for one day. I sent my assistant chief up there in their operations group. I sent my fire marshal over there as part of, I can't remember where he's at exactly. But having those two there, we were able to get a lot done and communicate much better while they were there, because all I had to do was just pick up the phone and I had a direct link. So that worked well. But something that we need to work on and have the capability to do that before. And then there's this handsome fellow.
Moving on.
So the important takeaway out of all of this is that we did not have one fatality related to the flood in the city of Mount Vernon or in the county. Nobody got hurt. No employees got hurt. And there wasn't any reported damage from the citizens of Mount Vernon due to the flood. That's quite remarkable in and itself. Currently, we're working on gathering data and reporting for reimbursement. I'll echo that reimbursement is not guaranteed from the federal government. While they provided assistance in allowing us to make the declaration to get a type 1 team here, does not mean that we're going to be reimbursed from the federal government at this point in time. And a lot of that is due to new changes in regulations to FEMA. And so the next thing that we really need to do as far as next steps is conduct after actions, or a hot wash, if you will. What worked well, what didn't work well, how do we improve and make things better? And that's something that we always do from an operational standpoint, is to seek that honest feedback of, okay, this went good, but this was terrible. You can't get better unless you address the terrible. So it's not about patting everybody on the back and saying you did a great job. It's really, for me, it's more about what did we not do good at so we can do better. Before I get into questions, if there are any, I would just like to say thank you to these folks who worked in the Emergency Operations Center. I left Cynthia off from GIS, so I apologize to Cynthia for that, but having GIS in there was extremely helpful. Thanks to Esther, my administrative assistant, James, Barry, and Ricardo from the fire department, who did all of our English to Spanish translation. Chief Chrisman, Lieutenant Mike Moore, Lieutenant Shackleton, IT, Mary Thomas and Christine Love Johnson, Doug from Finance, John Cochran from Parks. He is not the Parks Director, which normally Jennifer would be in there and doing that. And that poor guy had no idea what he was walking into. But I tell you what, he got the work done and he did fantastic. So super grateful for Sean. Kevin helping us out on the legal side, making sure a declaration was ready to go. Chris Phillips and his staff were fantastic. I wish I had all of their names to put up here, but our streets guys, and they got it dialed in. They really did a fantastic job. Thanks to Candy from TV10 to help us with our social media, and of course, Mayor Donovan, who handled all of the press like he was born to do it. Any questions?
Can you go back to the last slide one
No,
more?
that's not.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't he kind of look like Kevin Costner?
Wow.
Whoa.
There it is.
Well played, sir. Well played.
I do have a real question,
Yes.
if nobody else, if I may. Yeah, it does seem like there's a possibility that this is going to be more frequent in the future. And I know that you haven't done a hot wash or anything, and so this is super preliminary. Any ideas about what a more common response would look like if we are doing this maybe every 5 years? How this would change, how our interaction with the flood would change?
As when you say how do we manage it? That's a really good question. I would say if we're going to start seeing flood predictions like this come at us every so often, then I think from a county level, there has to be a push probably with Army Corps of Engineers into figuring out how are we going to improve our dike system. Because that's the first line of defense. And while we were very proactive in our leadership 10, 15 years ago, that put into place building this flood wall. I mean, if we didn't have that flood wall, holy smokes. I mean, I remember when we used to sandbag down here, thousands and thousands of sandbags and that, and the 2 days it took to put that flood wall up of sandbags. Just astronomical. But I would say that's what we would need to do is work with the federal government and the Army Corps of Engineers in figuring out how can we bolster, increase the height of our levees.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
You're welcome. Any other question?
One quick one. What is the height of our levees?
It varies. It varies throughout the county.
How about just in
in-
Mount Vernon?
Yep. So I am not the person to tell you that. I just know that it varies. But our dike district representative, Daryl Hamburg, would probably could probably give us an estimation to say, this is your lowest point in the dike system, this is your highest point in the dike system, and it varies.
It varies at the wall.
It does. It varies at our own wall. Yep.
And I can give you that information to show you where the different heights are.
Mayor?
Question on the hot wash, process. Do you include, not just the county, and I'm assuming the state would be in there for their piece of their interaction with us and the city, but do you include things like the dike district, like Army Corps of Engineers, all those people? You hear a lot of people, of course, social media, you need to dredge the river, you need to dredge the river. Well, I know nothing about dredging the river. I have no information. I would really love to understand that better, because to me, that sounds logical. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But we have to be really proactive looking for many solutions, not just one, raise the dikes, or is there a compilation of things that we can do? So I was just curious, who is involved in that?
Yeah,
Breaks out.
there's not just one. There was going to be several.
Okay,
So there will be several from the sense that we're going to do our own internally
right.
for how we performed, and then there will also be one from the county side. So the county will do one where it's all agencies that interacted with them from the county, from a local perspective, will be able to be involved in that. And then I have not been involved in one with the state, so I don't know exactly how that will go. But I would have to check in with our DEM director to see how they'll proceed with that moving forward.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mayor, did you have something you wanted?
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge the amazing job that you did as incident commander. First time in that role, and you came as close to nailing it as you can come. It was pretty awesome
Oh, well, thank you very much.
to watch you work and work through that situation. That was all systems go for a few days and not a whole lot of sleep. So
Yeah.
well done. I also want to thank another person in the room. The wall kind of got the glory, right? The wall was the hero of the story. The unsung hero is the person who helped get the wall there through lawsuits and legal action and persistence through, a couple of different mayoral administrations. Kevin Rogerson, our city attorney, has a lot to do with why that wall is there. So thanks to you as well. That was a huge contribution back in the day.
Back in the day.
I had two questions.
Yes, sir.
One, how soon do we see that hot wash process wrapping up? Or how soon you'll be back to give your report on that?
Yeah,
the end of
it'll be a while, probably a couple months, because right now, I mean, for us, we could probably move it faster internally, but to be able to get in that hot wash with the county and at the state level, it's going to be a while. One, because we're still in recovery, and they're still gathering data, damage assessment data that has to be turned in by the end of the month in order to even be eligible for the reimbursement. So the focus is different right now. It's collecting data information in recovery mode. Once we get that information done and to a point where it's ready to be delivered, then moving into, now let's do an after actions. Let's do that hot wash and see what went well, what didn't go well. And that could probably actually take a considerable amount of time when you think about how many agencies were involved in the overall incident. So I don't think that it's something that will happen in the first quarter, maybe in the second quarter of this year. We'll see some results from that. And when And when we do that, I will be happy to provide that information back to council.
And my follow-up question is, inviting all of these different entities, the state, county, that, are we going to invite the utility that controls the dam to also be involved in that?
I'm sure that they would be, yeah, because they're a big part of that process. Up until the point the Army Corps Engineers takes over.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome. Okay, last thing before we move on. So new hires and levy compliance update. So I just want to share with you all, the fire department was very proactive in preparing for the levy. A big part of that was due to, one, we're already short staffing and we had vacancies that we need to fill. Second, I was also anticipating getting that Safer Grant Award, which unfortunately we did not get, but we did pass that levy. So planning ahead set us up and prepared us ahead of time to be able to move forward with making these hires. So I just wanted to share with you, these are the new hires that started on the 5th of January. Right here, Logan Sad. He actually had a conditional job offer in July of last year, but he got hung up in the process. He's a former Navy person, and he needed to get VA information forwarded on in order to complete his process. Well, you'll remember the federal government shut down. And if you know anything about the VA, it already operates slow, but then you just shut down the government and it's never going to happen. And that's pretty much what happened is he never got his information. And so having some back and forth with the human resources director, I mean, I feel like Logan is a solid guy, will be a fantastic employee for us. And that we were not really worried about what was being held up in the process. So we decided to move him forward. But I couldn't start him earlier because we didn't have instructors or staff available to be able to start his training. So we had to hold him off until January 5th. Charles is also a Navy veteran and a local person. Noah Lee, Dylan, and Tia are firefighter EMTs. Audrey McCarthy is a local. She's out on the island. Her husband is a Navy aviator. Ryan Riggs. Does anybody remember a Steve Riggs that used to work for us?
Yeah.
Here's his progeny. The great thing about Ryan is he was already in a process in Snohomish County, and was going through their fire academy, and applied for us anyways. And this is, he really wants to be here, so we're happy to keep him in the valley and bring him on. Ricardo should be familiar to you. Ricardo really, this is the third time Ricardo has tested for us in the fire department to be a firefighter. And he came out #1 in that, so he made the decision easy. But super excited for him and to have him over on the operations side. It's going to be a real struggle to find a replacement for him because he does such a great job. And McKenna Peterson, who is a local gal and volunteer from Big Lake Fire Department. Which leaves me one more. So we have one left to hire. We had another person that was going through our process. Unfortunately, they didn't make it through it entirely. And so we have a conditional job offer out to another individual. And it sounds like he's moving through quickly and will be able to start approximately around the end of the month. Unfortunately, that's too late to get him into this fire academy. So we'll have to send him to the next. So some timelines for you. We started preparing for this in the fall of 2025. Our offers were made this winter. That includes medical physicals, psych evaluations, background checks. And then we made our final offers this winter, the start date of this week on the 5th. And right now they're going through, I'll say, their indoctrination of getting into the systems of the city. Right, we got to get them in the payroll. They got to go through HR. They got to go through IT training, all of that stuff to get them in the process. And we have to do some things with them before we send them off to the academy, which will start January 21st. It's a 12-week program. They'll come back to us this spring at the end of April, and then we're going to run them through about 3 weeks of days. And really what that is When we send them to the academy, they learn the basics, right? Pull hose, flow water, take hydrants, things like that, throw ladders, all of that stuff. But when we bring them back here, one, we want to reevaluate to make sure that they retained that and that they know how to do it. And nobody does it the same. So the way they do it at the academy is not how we do it here. Our vehicles are different, our hose loads are different, our equipment locations are different, our operations are different. So we train them on that and then we put them on shift. So our tentative time frame to have those folks on shift operating as they should is June of this year. And at that point in time, we should have engine 131 fully staffed and no more cross staffing. That's the tentative plan. I think that's achievable and we should be able to get that taken care of, if not by early June, definitely by the end. That's all I have. Any questions about hiring and training timeline? Okay, thank you, council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First things first, council, very good to see our new council members too. Good to see you. Mr. Mayor, always good to see me. No. Aaron, come up here, please. I want to bring Aaron Von Femp up for our new council members. Aaron supervised the iOS program in our office, the outreach program. And she's just done a knockout job. And we're so proud of what she's built. And I know that many of our council members are too. Did you bring your tissues? That a girl. I may need one. I asked Erin if she would come back because she's on retirement now. And so I just wanted her to say a few words to you. And if you have any questions or comments to her, this would be the time to do that. Erin Von Femp.
Good evening, Mayor Cosner, City Council
Hello,
members. Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. About 10 years ago, former Mayor Boudreau and City Council embarked on an exploration into a new way to help all the citizens and visitors of Mount Vernon, people experiencing homelessness, business owners, people living and working in the city of Mount Vernon. This was one of the first cities in Washington to develop a co-responder program within a police department. As what can happen with new concepts, some citizens appreciated this new program while others didn't see the value in it. Even in our world of seemingly blanketed visual vigilance, many acts of courage go unwitnessed and unappreciated. I can only imagine the effort that both mayors and council had to make to support and sustain iOS throughout the years. The fact that the outreach program has remained and in fact grown, I lost my train of thought, is the ultimate proof of great and quiet advocacy and nurture by you. A nurture which I have felt for the entire time I've worked here. iOS has had the privilege of making a difference in the lives of some people as well as within the wider co-response environment. The team is a collection of passionate, smart, creative, committed professionals who know how to foster and guide relationships with all kinds of people, some of whom are exceptionally challenging. Many obstacles were overcome to bring behavioral healthcare professionals into the city employment, including figuring out the almost unexplainable world of HIPAA and liability insurance. With the exponential growth of these types of co-response programs, other challenges and competitions will arise. You have met the past administrative puzzles with commitment to the very best outcomes possible, and I know that you will do the same in the future. Since the time that I gave my notice to retire, I have spent an abundance of time contemplating this phase of my career and how to express the deep emotions I feel. I've worn out my thesaurus looking for new words to more expansively describe my gratitude for being allowed to participate in this amazing experiment and the ocean floor depth of support that has been given to me throughout these 9 years. I came to Skagit County to retire, to leave social work in the hands of newer warriors. But because I was granted one more opportunity to help, I have been changed by miracles witnessed, unpredicted kindnesses given, and unending goodness experienced. There's no better way to say it, so I'll end with a classic sentiment. Thank you all so very much. I'm forever grateful, and it's been an honor and a privilege to work here.
Do you have any
Oh,
questions?
wait,
over
yeah, no,
before
I
she
need to,
dashes out?
I was there when you first started, right? I've been with you since the beginning. And I always loved when you came to talk to us and gave us a story of some people. And the one that always sticks in my brain is the one you said, I'm going to talk about 4 people, John, Paul, George, and Ringo. And you always gave them obviously other names, which was great. And that stuck with me for so long. You've done so many wonderful things for us, for this county. We are, as a county, looked on with such admiration for what we've created, like with the North Star. And you are a huge part of that. And I'm really irritated that you're retiring before me. But I hope that we'll still see you and you'll still be around. So I'm so proud of you.
Hold on. I just want to say thank you so very much. The program is what it is today because of you, because of your heart and your desire, your kindness. The city, we led at the city level and at the state level, and that is you. That is you. And sometimes the community, it takes them a while to come along, but we don't hear the complaints that we, used to hear. And I see iOS out. I work at the courthouse. I see iOS out on the street often, and I just go about my business because I know that people are being taken care of, and that's all because of you. So thank you, Erin. And I wish you the best in your retirement.
Is retirement still optional? Can we still talk about that?
Oh.
No, I wouldn't do that. Erin, you have, it's been said, you have transformed the way that the department of Mount Vernon polices. And really, you have revolutionized how countywide we approach solutions to our unhoused community. So thank you for the work that you've done. I can't say enough about what you've done and about the enormous loss that this is for us. Although I am excited for you, you can finally retire. I wish you'd reconsider.
If you get bored.
I tried, counsel. I tried to keep her. I tried everything. I even offered her my office, and no, I wasn't going to do it. So tonight, I have a script because I want to make sure that I say everything that I want to say to you. I want to address several recent calls for action by community members during city council meetings. Specifically, non-staffing or defunding, let's call it what it is, the police department, the removal of block license plate recognition or reader cameras, and reinvesting those monies into alternatives to public safety. These are my opinions, not, but they're based in fact, and I want to share those facts with you tonight. During recent council meetings, during the public comment section, council heard from 2 community members specifically seeking action from the city. First, on November 19th, a community member asked council not to add any additional police officers to the Mount Vernon Police Department. They said they fully supported funding the Fire and Parks Department, but was hesitant to vote yes on the levy lid lift because funding was associated with the police department. Then on December 17th, another community member asked council not to add any additional police officers to the Mount Vernon Police Department and to deactivate and remove off-block LPR cameras in Mount Vernon. The speaker asked the city to review the positive impacts in Minneapolis. What they experienced in their defund efforts starting in 2019 up until current. I went and looked at those, and I want to report those facts to you tonight. This citizen also cited the Cahoots program in Eugene, Oregon as an alternative to the Mount Vernon funding any additional police officers, and then went on to suggest that we remove any mental health or behavioral health or unhoused efforts from the police department and separate them from what we're doing today. And then she went on to say, ask for emergency funding or funding for emergency housing as one of the alternatives to staffing the police department. While I appreciate the acknowledgement of, especially of the second speaker, understanding that I'm not a chief that ascribes to a narrow view, quote, narrow view of policing coming out of the 80s. That is not me. But I do believe that some of the suggestions, no doubt, were well-intended, but pose serious and harmful consequences to our city. As a law enforcement professional and a police educator in Washington, I have been a proponent of awareness, service, reform, and maintaining and supporting police and their communities, including examining these suggestions and other proposals like the community members have tabled. I understand and respect the emotions driving the call to not staff the Mount Vernon Police Department. I've heard them before in other communities and all around our state. In 2019, I left policing, was asked to join the state of Washington as the program manager for Initiative 940, the first effort for widespread police reform in our state. And I gladly did that. I traveled around the state, met with, listened to, and discussed the many different plans for police reform with hundreds of people and law enforcement officials from the east side to the west side, north to south. Without exception, communities wanted safety, accountability, and justice, which we all strive to achieve. Regarding our staffing, for the past year, I've reported to council that the police department is understaffed. In fact, I've described our situation as a staffing crisis. According to records kept by the Washington Association of Police Chiefs and Sheriffs, Mount Vernon has not added a new police officer to its ranks since 1996. I implore the council to make decisions based on facts, not emotions. And I offer the following facts for you to consider. Washington State is ranked 51st in the nation for staffing its police departments. That includes Washington, D.C. That's why we're not 50th. We are dead last for having law enforcement presence in our communities. Since 1996, we've had the same allocated number of police officers in Mount Vernon. This includes everyone who wears a uniform, from our newest hire to the chief of police, 46. In the past, U.S. police departments averaged 1.5 officers per 1,000 people in their community. Today, U.S. police departments average 2.5 officers per 1,000 in their community. And yet today, the Mount Vernon Police Department is staffed at 1.2 officers per 1,000, less than half of the national average. In the past 30 years, between 1996 and today, our city's population has grown by 65%. Our police calls for service have grown nearly 40%. And yet we're still operating with the same number of police officers during that growth period. For 30 years, Mount Vernon's police staffing has remained static, while our population has doubled and our calls for service have risen exponentially. Our public safety is suffering for this. We are not meeting the needs to protect our community at even an average pace as the rest of the nation. Now, When council has been discussing adding new police officers, two of our community members have had a strong voice, essentially calling to defund the police department. Not funding or understaffing law enforcement is not a viable solution. In fact, real-world examples show that this approach creates more harm than good. This is just one example of the success that we've had in Mount Vernon by adding police officers to a task. When I got here, we didn't have a traffic unit. All of our specialty units had been dismantled and they had been reallocated to backfill vacancies in patrol. We stood up our traffic unit. You can see in 2023, we had 555 collisions. We averaged about 20 a month. We made about 959 traffic stops and issued about 250 tickets. By 2025, the end of 2025, when we had our traffic unit up and running, we were averaging less than 300 collisions or collision reports, about 10 a month. And we made 2,005 traffic stops, issued 675 tickets in those 2,000 stops. But what I want you to note is that our collision rate fell. In 2023, as a side note, we were averaging about 20 injury collisions a month. Today, we're averaging about 10 injury collisions a month. It's because people know that enforcement is out there and we're taking action to slow people down and have them pay attention to their driving. The same thing can be said about patrol. I hear regularly, how come I don't see patrol officers on the street? It's because we have 1.2 officers per 1,000. There's a good chance you're not going to see an officer in your neighborhood today. One of the community members asked council to consider the positive outcomes of the Minneapolis Police Department and to implement a program outside of the MVPD like the Cahoots program. You heard about iOS tonight. What a phenomenal program. Success story after success story after success story. I offer evidence of what adding police officers can provide to our city, our traffic unit and patrol. We've tried to just use them as much as possible. We have SROs in the school. But let's look at Minnesota. After the tragic death of George Floyd, and it was a tragic death, the city moved aggressively towards defunding its police department. The results were devastating. Violent crime surged, homicides nearly doubled, violent crime spiked. With less officers, response times for emergencies grew longer, further jeopardizing their community. And residents, especially those in vulnerable communities or neighborhoods, were left feeling less safe. Minnesota PD shrank from about 880 officers in 2020 to around 560 officers in 2022. And they invested heavily in alternatives to policing, programs like, these are their titles, violence interrupters, mental health responders, and neighborhood safety programs. And they all produced mixed results. There were some successes in reducing conflicts, but they lacked the scale and resources necessary to support the task that we can do with traditional policing. Ultimately, Minneapolis had to reverse course and reinvest millions back into their police department because the experiment failed to deliver the expected results. Today, Minneapolis has restored its police budget. It's actively recruiting police officers and struggling to backfill vacancies created during the defund movement. Closer to home, in 2019, Seattle PD employed over 1,300 police officers. By 2020, the department was impacted by their significant reductions, and in 2024, SPD had dropped to about 933 police officers. Seattle staffing challenges began amid national unrest, calls for police reform, and a local push to reduce their staffing, defund the police, and reinvest those monies in alternatives to policing. Like what you heard recently here over the past couple months. In Seattle, overtime budgets skyrocketed because there weren't enough officers to cover the shifts. Crime had steadily deteriorated. You've probably seen it on the news. Their safety, their reputation, and quality of life in Seattle struggled. They're now offering, Seattle PD is now offering up to $50,000 hiring bonuses to bring police officers back to Seattle. Similar experiences are occurring across the nation. Last week, for the first time in 2 years, Kansas City, Missouri leaders reported an overall decrease in violent crime. Their leadership said it was primarily due to the city adding additional police officers. With regards to the levy lid lift, I'll never look a gift horse in the mouth. But the funding from the levy lid lift gives us 6 officers, 1 officer each year for 6 years. That's just 1 officer a year for 6 years. That's how it impacts our ratio or our officer to population. I used a 1% per year growth in our population. So I pushed that out to 2031 and then added 1 officer each year. And by 2031, we will be at 1.36 officers per 1,000 population. We're at 1.2 today. Now, let me frame this for you a little bit. It's unlike my friend, Chief Harris. I wish I could adopt his training program, but I can't. Under state standards, I can't. Recruitment and pre-employment testing takes about 3 months. Depending on timing, it takes 2 to 6 months to secure a seat in our police academy. The police academy lasts 4 months. After academy graduation, the officer undergoes, on average, 4.5 months of field training. And that's at the police department while they're working with another veteran officer. And if they pass field training, they will be assigned to patrol as a solo officer. It takes almost 1 full year to get a police officer from hire to solo status. The officer that we hire in the next month or 2 will be out on their own in the city of Mount Vernon sometime around January of 2027. 1 officer a year does not close the gap on our staffing or keep up with the city's future growth rate. With regards to alternatives to policing, the Cahoots program in Eugene, Oregon was mentioned as an alternative to hiring our police officers. While often cited as a model for replacing police with mental health crisis teams, as of April 2024, the Cahoots program lost its funding and it's no longer operating in Eugene, Oregon. That doesn't make it a bad program. It was a great program, and we looked at the Cahoots program. This police department looked at the Cahoots program when we were standing up iOS. Started in 2016, the iOS program is still a collaborative effort with our community. It aims to provide intervention, immediate needs, supplies, and access to services for the unhoused and those in mental health and behavioral health crises. iOS staff respond to about 20% of our calls for service. They take them off of the plate from a uniformed police officer. Any call that has underlying issues of mental health, behavioral health, or substance use disorder, they get first shot at it as long as there's not a threat involved. The city has invested extensively, not only in iOS, but also in other alternatives to policing like the North Star program, and most recently the Star Center in Cedar Woolley. And we hope to address people who are experiencing mental health crises, substance abuse, the unhoused, and nonviolent incidents. Our program also enables promising interns internships for masters in social work students, allowing them to gain hands-on experience in outreach and social work. So one day they may be able to carry on our legacy. The police department's exceptional iOS team has also recently added a licensed nurse practitioner who provides medical attention to those in need, something nobody else is doing. When I go to WASPIC, our Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs meeting, people constantly ask me about our iOS team, how amazing it must be to have social workers and a nurse working out of the police department, hand in hand, step in stride with our officers. And it is amazing. Council, the iOS program has become the crown jewel in serving the unhoused population and addressing behavioral health and addiction in our community, period. It's a fact. People around us want to replicate it. And now other communities look to us as a model for what they can do to help others in need, not funding, defunding, or moving funds from the police department to other alternatives to address the root causes of crime. Sounds like a quick fix, but it's not, and public safety is very complex, and I'm not going to underplay that a bit. Council, I'm your police chief. While I can guide and direct our officers to address crime and social disorder, it would be nearly impossible for me to influence the root cause of crime. I acknowledge that. The lack of affordable housing, economic and social factors, mental health, behavioral health, substance use disorders, systemic issues like shelter capacity, barriers for those reentering society, and the lack of coordinated services for healthcare and employment, which are endemic in Washington and our nation. Our communities deserve both justice and security, and ultimately we must address these root causes. But as other experiments across our nation have proven, it must be done without sacrificing public safety. Now, regarding our flock cameras, I've been relatively quiet about this until now. This is a flock camera. It's a solar panel on the top with a small camera attached to it. With staffing at an all-time low, the Mount Vernon Police Department relies on technology to supplant people. This is $5,000 per camera per year versus what you already know it costs to put a body in a uniform, outfit them, equip them, put them in a vehicle, and put them on the street. This camera has helped us solve critical and terrible crimes in Mount Vernon and across our nation. No one was talking about flock LPR cameras until October of 2025. When the University of Washington Human Rights Center published their report, leaving the door wide open.
I'm gonna stop you right there. That's not true.
Tell me about it.
I am positive that I communicated with either you or the mayor before that date, 100%.
Yeah. Were you talking about no one in the city or just no one, the general conversation?
Generally, no one was talking about flock cameras.
That is not true. But I'm not saying anything else that you haven't said is not true. But
Okay.
I am gonna stop you there. And,
Councilman, you didn't talk to me about that.
okay,
So you may have talked to the mayor, but,
You did. Yeah, I think
absolutely
April
before
probably,
that
but-
date.
all right,
Well before.
let me retract that then.
That's just fine.
No one was talking to me. No one was bringing up the issue to me until this report. In that report, all of the agencies surveyed, Mount Vernon Police Department was one of only 6 agencies that there was no data breach. And this is a quote directly out of that report. The sheriff's two sheriff's offices and 4 police departments that had no data breach from federal agencies. I just feel like that needs to be repeated because what I hear from now people in the public is ICE, Homeland Security, Border Patrol are using flock cameras to access data.
I think now what people are talking about here is the Skagit County Superior Court ruling. Do you have any comment on that court ruling? Or Kevin Robertson, would you have a opinion?
I don't have a legal opinion. We're not a party to it. The Superior Court ruling was appealed. The parties are Cedar Woolley and Arlington. And it's involving not about policy or privacy. It's directly related to the Public Records Act. One issue I can tell you is that this may be corrected by the legislature this year. And there are several bills being discussed regarding that application to specifically these cameras.
But in the meantime, Cedar Woolley and Stanwood, since that ruling, have repealed their use of flock.
My understanding is they turned off the cameras, but
That's my understanding as
I
well.
don't have personal knowledge, but that's my
Okay.
understanding.
Okay.
As has Redmond and several others around the state.
But since that ruling specifically,
Oh.
which was relatively recently.
On the
to
public
city-
records.
Yes.
Yep.
Because that is a different concern than what you're talking about right now, which is maybe more in a like a defund, and I'm not interested in that conversation, but around my own data privacy.
Yeah.
And whether or not people are able to access that is something that I am personally very concerned with.
Sure. Understood. I would tell you that our success with the flock cameras is based on the fact that we heavily researched the product and the contracts. We created tight guardrails on who and how our data could be used, and then we restricted access to our data. We didn't let every single agency that asked for permission to use our cameras, we didn't allow them that access. It also helped that I had experience with flock from my previous department and maintained access to and communications with product engineers who helped us further safeguard our data. Deactivating and removing our flock cameras would take away one of the most effective tools that we have to solve serious crimes today. Criminals should fear LPR cameras. Law-abiding citizens should have no fear with this. I understand you're concerned about data. I get that. But I'll go into why I don't think they should fear this. LPR cameras have helped recover stolen property, identify vehicles used in violent crimes, and locate missing and endangered children and adults. They do not track individuals or collect personal information. They do capture images of license plates and vehicles, which is information that anyone standing on a sidewalk or street corner can see. And they do it under strict retention and oversight rules. LPR cameras are a low intrusion, high impact technology that have repeatedly proven their value. Even before we had flock cameras in Mount Vernon, we realized the power of this technology when on January 6th, a juvenile human trafficking victim from Mount Vernon was transported to Michigan by a registered sex offender. That vehicle was tracked across the United States, and that person was recovered as a result of being able to identify and track that vehicle. The rest of these are what I would say success stories from our city. A gang-related shooting at the McDonald's Chevron. That vehicle left the parking lot. The cameras up there on the property were fuzzy and grainy, but our flock cameras picked up the vehicle and we were able to get a license plate, which resulted in the arrest of the individuals involved in that or responsible for that shooting. We had a suspect in a commercial sex abuse of a minor and child molestation case that we tracked the vehicle involved, and ultimately arrests were made. And I've got a laundry list of cases that, we have used this camera successfully, just looking at license plates, giving us leads to track down the people involved. They're one of the most effective modern tools for solving crimes law enforcement has available to them right now. Are they perfect? No. Can we hope they would get better? Yes. LPR cameras protect our residents without collecting personal data, I said earlier. They do not record names, addresses, or drivers' identities, but removing them doesn't increase privacy. It simply removes a low intrusion safety tool that operates under strict oversight. And as our city attorney mentioned, I know of 2 or maybe 3 pieces of legislation that will, this spring will probably make a decision for us whether or not these tools are even going to be valuable to us if those pieces of legislation go into place. They do deter crime and reduce response times. It is critical to understand that criminals often rely on their vehicles, and when they know a city uses LPR technology, they avoid it. We lose that deterrent if cameras are removed. Meanwhile, officers lose the ability to receive real-time alerts about stolen vehicles, amber alerts, silver alerts, and vehicles linked to ongoing criminal investigation. That means slower response times, fewer recoveries, and more cases going cold. This is a preventative impact that benefits our community. Removing them creates a blind spot. I know that talking to some of the other chiefs around the state, they've interviewed folks who were incarcerated that said, we know what cities have technology and we know what cities don't. Not just Flock, but any other technologies that are being used around the state. And the cost of removing it is really higher than the cost of using it. Cities that remove LPR cameras face higher long-term costs, more officer hours spent on manual investigations of crimes, lower recovery rates for wanted or missing persons and stolen property, increased insurance claims and premiums, higher investigative workloads for an already stretched and understaffed police department. LPR cameras should strengthen public trust while preserving a critical investigative source. Council, I'm prepared to talk to you about the command van, but I know it's late and I can come back to you at another time because I don't know that that's an action that's going to be taken anytime soon. But I have, of course, an opinion about that too. If you want to hear more, I can take another 10 minutes. If you want to just field some questions, if you want me to field your questions, I'm happy to do that now.
I would prefer time for questions. Personally. Nivor?
Do we have any questions?
Oh, yeah, I can keep going. Or do you want to skip the command?
I'm interested in hearing about the command. So let's,
Okay. This vehicle is not a new request, as many council members know. Each year for the past 20 years, and long before I was named chief of police, even before the former chief Kamek was appointed. In the budget development process, Mount Vernon Police staff requested purchase of a command van, and each year they were told, not this year, but let's revisit it next year. And so we put it back on the budget discussion document that went to finance and ultimately to you. In today's world, emergencies don't wait for us to be ready. We have to be ready, whether it's a natural disaster like our recent flood, a major traffic incident like the I-5 bridge collapse, or the SR-35 bridge project, which is in the future, a large-scale public event like the Tulip Festival, or an incident associated with the 2026 FIFA World Cup, an unexpected crisis like the Burlington Mall shooting. A command van is an essential piece of equipment. Our ability to respond quickly and effectively determines results. Having resources, planning, and a centralized and unified command post near the scene is essential. Right now, our operations rely heavily on fixed facilities, but what happens when actual buildings are inaccessible? During the December flood, our department is in the flood zone. We had sandbags delivered, and we were prepared to sandbag and abandon the Mount Vernon Police Department. So where do our people go as a centralized location? We have to find another building. And so we made arrangements with the college to relocate up on the hill if we had to abandon our facility. But this mobile command van becomes essential when the situation demands immediate on-site coordination. It's a fully equipped mobile operations center that allows us to coordinate resources on site during critical incidents, reducing response times and confusion. Maintain communication, action and efficiency even if power and infrastructure is compromised. And it serves as a hub for all public safety agencies during large community events, giving residents confidence that help is near. Last week, the Skagit multi-agency response team, who responds to officer-involved shooting incidents, had a deployment, and several of our people are on that team. They ended up in Coopville in Island County. There was no cell phone access where they were at, and there was no internet access. And so when we got that phone call, I said, well, what about the fire station? There's got to be a fire station nearby. There was, and they went down to it, and it also had no internet access. It was a completely volunteer station. So they didn't put anything in there that would support that. Our people had to work in the weather. It was cold, it was wet, and then get in their cars separate from each other. And so they're siloing each other when they're working on a collective case. Command van gives us opportunity to get into a space together. It's got whiteboards in it, it's got radios, it's got computers, it's got everything we need to conduct a full-scale criminal investigation. In a crisis or even at a festival of hundreds or even thousands of people with multiple agencies involved, this apparatus becomes a nerve center and unified command for police, fire, EMS. See, it's not just a police command van, it's a citywide asset. We have honored the budget concerns in the past with this need for 20 years. And that's why we've researched our options to balance cost and capability. It's a long-term investment, that one that will serve the city for over 20 years. Council, our goal is very simple in the police department to ensure that when the unexpected happens, we're ready. A command van is a real important tool to protect lives, safeguard property, and maintain order anytime, anywhere. Now, I'll field any questions.
I've talked a lot already. Is it anybody else?
I also have questions, or at least thoughts. So one, I am grateful that you are our police chief in that you do like outreach and prevention work. I don't have any comments on the first things that you said, but as far as the flock cameras go, I am very concerned about flock cameras existing here, both with targeting immigrants, which I think is awful and shouldn't be happening in our community, and the risk that that could be happening through cameras that we are paying for. And also I'm concerned because of the case with Cedar-Woolley, and now the public can gain access to those cameras. And I think that's very, very concerning. I don't want anybody looking up my license plate and finding out exactly where I've been the last 31 days. So I'm very, very concerned. And I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
If I may. Thank you so much. I'm always going to get grumpy when I'm talked at for a long time. So that's more about me, less about you. But I do want to say that I prefer, this is maybe in a discussion for us to have later, I prefer shorter, more in-depth conversation, and I prefer material ahead of time. So I'm not emotionally reacting to something that I'm seeing as you're delivering it, which is what happened tonight. Not necessarily something that's your fault, but just something for us maybe to discuss later. I want to review beforehand just so we can talk about that. Command van, how long does the command van last? Are there recurring costs? Those are the two things I got.
The projected timeline or lifetime of that is 20 years. Is there ongoing costs? Probably like with any other vehicle. There's going to be some basic maintenance.
Nothing crazy though.
I sure hope not. I can tell you that at Bothell PD, they have a command van. They've had it for probably 25 years. But they haven't had any critical infrastructure issues in there It's got radios, it's got computers, it's got monitors, it's got all that stuff that
So
can
kind of
go
like
haywire.
upgrading it as it goes, sort of thing.
Yes, exactly.
So with that in mind, I would be in favor personally of investing in a command van if it's a good long-term investment. I think that makes sense. And I also wanted to say that I really appreciate what you said about staffing. I'm never going to be against more staff. That's never something I'm going to have a problem with. I appreciate that I appreciate our police force, and I'm so glad that we're getting back on track a little bit, although it could be better. I do want to go back to the flock cameras, though, once more. To echo what Hannah said here, there is this public records request thing that is an actual concern. And you did show some very compelling stories there. I would love to see some more data around, and this is going to sound very odd, but some more data around each one of these incidents. I'm assuming that our police force is going to make arrests and do their job. So with increased staffing, do you see a decreased use or a decreased need for flock cameras?
Well, what a complex question. These cameras have been instrumental in, first off, identifying, as I said, the cost issue. If we just took them away, you can expect that investigations are going to take much, much longer because they'll have to be done manually, literally knocking on doors, looking for Ring doorbell cameras, all those things that, you know, we do and have done in the past and continue to do today. What I would tell you is that without staffing, it would cripple us to take the camera away. I think we would, I think the community that communicates with me the most would want to know why we weren't using technology, whatever the technology is, to move our investigations further.
And I guess in that same vein, CCTV versus flock. I understand that CCTV program would be much more expensive, and it would be something, but it's not going to be as expensive as a police officer. Is that anything that you've thought of before? Just if anybody's closed circuit television. So this is something where we're not streaming data to a third party, and then they're compiling that and giving it back to us. This would only be without Mount Vernon, if people understand the difference between that and flock.
It has its limitations. It's widely used in Europe, as you know, probably, and in some US cities. The problem is that a lot of the companies that produce them or provide them, it doesn't have the license plate reader technology associated with it. And so, yes, it'd be a benefit and, you know, would not turn it down because if it captured a vehicle leaving a scene, we could, you know, freeze it and look for the license plate and move on from that. Where we lose on this is amber alerts, silver alerts, stolen vehicles, people of interest in other criminal investigations whose license plates are inputted into flock by agencies across the United States. As you know, like the victim who was transported from Mount Vernon to, you know, east of here, Michigan. You know, those cameras pinged on that vehicle as it moved across. So we would lose that. But locally, you know, it would be an alternative.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that. I guess as a closing, and I'll stop talking. Anytime our society somewhat goes towards that book, 1984, that's always going to make my stomach clench up a little bit, even if it has some positive benefits to it. Every time that happens, I'm going to have some resistance to it, just as a general statement.
Understood.
Other questions?
I do. So for the iOS team, is there anything that, like for weekends or evenings or things on call, or are they strictly like Monday through Friday?
Currently, they are weekdays only. There's a movement right now to try to kind of multiply what we have in the entire county so that we have weekend coverage as well as after hours coverage.
That was my only thing, being in the nursing field and then having gone with the police officers before. It was like, it was difficult for them to get help, like on a Friday night or on a Saturday night when those people desperately needed help. So I didn't know if like something about working something where you could have somebody on call or I don't know, something like that in the
Sure.
works later on. But it'd be fun to see something like that happen, obviously.
Right now, we have one shift that starts earlier in the day and the other one that stays a little bit later. And so we have expanded our hours
Okay.
because we have two groups of two.
Right.
But it would be nice to have people available on the weekends and
Right.
in the nighttime hours as well.
Right.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
question about it, especially in the summertime.
Yeah, yeah. For sure.
Other questions, other comments?
To your left.
Apologies for bringing us back to flock cameras, but I do have a question.
Sure.
But first, actually, I have a comment. So, and I don't know when these happened, but I was doing some research, and there's a lot of cities and agencies who have either ended their contract with Flock recently, I think, or have just turned off the cameras. And it's not big cities like we might assume, like defund police groups happening. So it includes Mountain Lake Terrace, Skamania County Sheriffs, I think, or maybe Housing Authority, Wenatchee, Stanwood, Sedro-Woolley. It's actually a long list. So I just wanted to say that. And so now that people can request footage or photos, like the public can, so if somebody requested footage or photos of specifically where my car had been the last 30 days, are we able to let that person know that somebody is now knows everywhere that they've been the last 30 days? Or what's the process if we do get that request? So if you got a request, it's my car, somebody random in the public now knows where I have been or where I have passed these cameras.
Yeah.
Could you let me know?
The
And would
law
you?
explicitly allows the agency who receives a public records request to provide notice to any person who's the subject of the record what their request is, and that notice provides them an opportunity to go into court and seek an injunction from the release of those records. You have legal standing to do so if you wanted to argue to the court that those records should not be released under the law.
Okay. I'm still very concerned, but that is good to know. Thank you.
I have one more question. So when we were going back to talk about police officers per like 1,000,
Yeah.
what is, I guess, a number that you would be targeting for? Like,
Every time I've had this conversation with the mayor, I've used the number 1.5. I'm happy to go back to, what the past was. 2.5 officers that's a lot of officers in this city. 1.5 officers puts us at almost 80 police officers in Mount Vernon. We're at 46 today, but almost double our force. We'd run out of space in our building. We wouldn't have enough cars,
correct, correct.
And I can do with, my goal, set my sights on that 1.5 officers per thousand. And I want to make it very clear, council, that's a national average.
Right.
It's not a staffing model. I'm just giving you a reference point. So could I do better with 1.4 or 1.3 officers? You bet I could.
Right.
You bet I could. But again, we're just trying to get our head above the water line.
Right, right.
Being 51st in the nation, there's a reason for that. And we have been working on House Bill 2015, and I don't know how much, you want to go into that tonight, Mr. Mayor, but, the sales tax and the grant money that would be available for getting additional police officers without costing the city any additional money. Now, it's not perfect by any means, but we're working towards that. There, I opened the door. You're gonna slam it on me.
And there's a deadline coming up, so the 2015 sales tax is in the 2026 budget. The first deadline to collect second quarter is next week. And so, depending on, because of all of the requirements for that, to be able to take that, We've been working through those. There was a lot of ambiguity, especially early on, and well, what do we need to do? Who's setting these standards that we're striving for? Those are becoming clearer, and we are getting closer to the point where we could potentially have a resolution for you next Wednesday night. So we are,
It'd be an ordinance. But
thank you.
you can do either or, but I drafted an ordinance.
I'm
If you
still
want a
learning all
resolution, you
this
can go back,
Right.
change the title.
by next week. So, Kevin, anything else? Kevin, Chief, anything else you'd want to add to that? Doug?
It's an issue of fact. If we have done what we need to do and it's ripe, it will be presented, I imagine, next week. If not, it'll be done as soon as reasonably foreseeable, as soon as we can get it done.
We know we've narrowed it down to, most of the training, we've done that. Chief has been on, he got on that and finished it in December. Right now it's down to just policies, adopting policies. And all of the policies that are proposed, we're on board with. We just have to adopt them for Mount Vernon. And can we do that in the little time that we have? So we'll work on it.
Anyone else?
I have one, just one quick.
Yes.
I just want to say thank you very much for your presentation. The flock cameras it's a very interesting beast, I guess I'll call it that. I want to learn more. I know I understand the need for privacy and to protect your privacy. I just don't want to lose that tool to solve these crimes. I don't want to take that away, that capacity to the young lady that was transported to Michigan. I remember that conversation. I remember that whole thing. I mean, if that camera wasn't there, we probably wouldn't have found her, right? So that's important to me. The victims, that's important to me. I want to make sure that they're taken care of. I understand wanting your privacy. I don't have an issue with that. I would really like to learn more. I'm afraid and nervous about what the legislature is going to do because we never know which way they're going to swing. Thank God it's a short session. It'll be over soon. So we'll have some answers at that point. But I really appreciate the information that you gave us.
And I'm watching that very closely through WASPIC, our state organization. I want them to address retention. I want them to address public records requests for people. I'm concerned about somebody making a request for an estranged spouse or somebody like that and tracking them. I'm concerned about that. And if there's a reason to deactivate and remove our flock cameras, in my perspective, those are big reasons to. Those are things that people should be concerned about versus I think they're looking at me. I think they're tracking my movements. We don't have time, other personnel to do that. But I understand your comments and I'm on it. And I'll be able to give you updates from the state level, from WASPIC as those pieces of legislation comes through. One of the things that I'm concerned about too is there's one legislator who wants to limit the retention period to 24 hours. Well, it really does no good for us to have the flock cameras for a cold case, a murder, a burglary, assault, any of those things. If I'm tracking a vehicle and trying to find that vehicle over a period of time. So there has been a lot of discussion about broadening that a little bit. It's going to change the retention period, but I don't know what the chances are of that passing. I don't yet. So. And then we're hopeful that someone will introduce that this data will be protected from public records. And if that's the case, I'll continue to update you as I hear more about that.
Anyone else?
Sorry again for grilling you. That was, thank you so much. I really appreciated it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yes.
Nabor, if I might, I thank you, Chief,
Yeah.
For really, I could hear it in your voice, and I appreciate it. I feel like I know the men and women of the Mount Vernon Police Department well enough to know how concerned you are as well when we're talking about immigration and things like that. Time is critical. I was just reading at my desk this morning of a case out of Kennewick, and there was a mother, 31 years old, who was hit by a woman, and she fled, and the person died, the mom died, and there's 5 little children here. Well, they had an assist from Flock to catch the driver. And so I think about the victims. I think so often victims, not intentionally, but they get left behind sometimes. And so I'm struggling with, I understand this privacy issue, but at the same time, everybody's on Facebook. I mean, everybody knows where everybody is. Everybody's posting pictures and things like that. And so I'm just struggling with that. I understand the ICE part of it. I totally understand that, and I don't think any of us want that. But it is a tool, and we have 1.2 officers, and I can't imagine how exhausted everyone is, and you can't keep up that momentum, and it's just a tool. And again, you look at that UW study, and Mount Vernon was one of 6 that are doing it right. And in terms of the Superior Court case, that was about public records, and that was that the city said, you know, you're not getting the public records. Well, hello, yeah, they're public records, that information. And so that's what she was saying, it's public record. So I just wanted to say that you have my support.
I'd like to address that just really quickly.
Sure.
I think everybody here is trying to reduce harm. So at the same time that Flock is being used well, there was a Texas police officer that tracked a woman across the country because she
Right.
had an illegal abortion.
Mhm.
So I think that there's a reduction in harm that everybody here is trying to achieve.
Absolutely, yes.
And so the privacy is not about like, ooh, boogeyman or something. It's about like, oh, like ICE comes and like rips apart a family. And
Oh,
like
I
that's
understand.
a
I understand
harm.
that. Mhm.
People being tracked
Mhm.
illegally is a harm. So it's not like a boogeyman privacy thing, like, oh, Facebook, yada, yada, yada. It's that I'm trying to, as the same as you are, trying to prevent harm, also trying to prevent harm. And we're weighing those two things.
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
And I appreciate that this was the most honest conversation that we've had about this, where there are positives 100%, and there are also harms that are potential with it.
Chief, I would just like to express my confidence in your leadership, and I thank you for being honest, for bringing this very difficult issue before us. But I do want to thank you for your leadership through all of this. And knowing last January when you took the step to talk about not cooperating in certain ways that would tear apart families of the immigrant population here in Mount Vernon. I thank you for your leadership in those ways. And so I think that's, worth stating that, thank you. For your leadership.
Thank you. Yeah. I have no words.
Thanks, Chief. Do we have any other, for the good of the order this evening?
Do you want me to talk about
Yeah,
quasi judicial?
yeah, that'd be good. Yeah.
The mayor asked me just really briefly, next week you're going to have a quasi judicial hearing. And I know there is 3 new council members here who's never undergone that. And you have all undergone training on the difference in roles between a quasi judicial and a legislative role. And I'm not going to talk about the matter because that's not appropriate. Nobody here who is a party to it, but I can talk to you, just kind of a refresher about what you'll be doing next week when that matter is called, if you like, and it won't be long, about 5 minutes. So you're going to see a decision before you in which you are going to act as a judge and a jury. It's a closed record hearing, which means your decision will be based not upon testimony, live testimony introduced at the time of the hearing next week. It's going to be based upon a hearing that occurred in front of your hearing examiner, who everybody was provided public notice, and any member of the public was allowed to speak. And you'll see a hearing examiner's recommendation. That is a professional who weighed the testimony and evidence and documents and made a decision of facts on an application and the law that applies. And you're going to review that, and you're going to make a decision on that recommendation. And it's going to be in the form of a resolution following that recommendation. Typically, staff will say, yes, they got it right. And here are the findings of fact. This is what we believe are the facts, and here's the law, and we're applying it, and it meets and it satisfies the law. So here's a decision we recommend. There will be testimony. It's a little unusual. A lot of cities don't do that. They just say there is no testimony. We're not going to have a hearing. We're just going to have you deliberate on the cold written record. But we do allow argument. People can argue. They can't introduce new evidence, but they can argue their position in front of the council. But because it's closed record, it's not open. It's only those people who participated in the hearing below. So you get a lot of members of the public who are, energized, want to tell you their position, but they weren't there below. Then it gets, they get, quite rightly a little upset when you said, well, we can't hear it. That was supposed to happen below. Because state law only allows one open record hearing. And then you can have a closed record. That's the state law. Because they want to get these land use decisions done and efficiently. It's called the Land Use Reform Act, or I don't have it exactly right. So I will ask you a series of questions then, just to ascertain that you can make this decision without entangling influences, that you don't have a financial stake in the outcome, things that a judge couldn't have. So you not only are fair in fact, but there is an appearance of fairness that a reasonable person could say, you're free from outside influences in making this decision. So unlike a legislative decision, you're going to be asked these questions and you're going to respond, and then we'll determine whether or not your decisions disqualify you as a decision maker. This isn't a popularity contest. If people don't like what's going on, that has nothing to do with your decision. It deals with the facts and the law. And I was trying to think of an example. You may very well, many cities have height restrictions, and how high can you build a building? For great reasons, fire department reasons, you can't reach it, aesthetic reasons, safety reasons. So there might be very well a height restriction on how high a building can be, an application can be approved for a building. And there might be an argument that, well, gosh, as a council member, I don't like that height restriction. I think that height restriction should be way higher. Or, man, I don't want big towers. It should be way lower. That's a policy question. This isn't an issue about policy. It's what does the law say? So if the law says it has to be 30 or below, whether or not you believe that's good policy is irrelevant. You have to understand, is there an issue of fact? Is the building going to be 30 feet or below? And if you find that the evidence shows that will be 30 feet or below, you shall make a decision that it complies with the law. If there is a dispute over whether or not that is, then you get to weigh the evidence and make a decision based upon a preponderance, which one is more likely. It's like you're a juror and they give you instructions, right? Mm-hmm. You're not getting those instructions, but that's the exercise you're doing next week. So, different role.
Kevin, in 90 seconds or less,
Okay.
there's a debate kind of about whether or not this process should even exist in a city's code. And some cities have removed this process, and there are pros and cons to that.
Yeah, so
Go.
That is a, now, that is a policy choice.
Some people.
Some people are
Some
having the
people.
debate?
Yeah.
Who is it?
Oh, Kevin will tell us.
So that is a policy choice. The council doesn't have to have the hearing examiner make all these final decisions. Many cities are going to that because these do become politicized decisions, land use decisions. Sometimes there's no way to please everyone, and you'll get members of the community that are disgruntled or vocal, and there's political pressure, and city councils don't like to be in that position. We want to make the policy and have the professionals implement the policy. Not required, but there are also liability issues, but that is certainly things that cities have done, bigger cities typically do. There are certain actions that are quasi-judicial that you have to take, whether you like it or not. This one actually is one you have to decide. It's a site-specific rezone. You don't get to pass a law that says, I'm giving this to a hearing examiner. You can't. State law says you have to do it. A lot of them you can, if you so desire. And we can talk about that greater.
Thank you.
Was that 90 seconds?
No, perfect.
Try it.
Anything else for the good of the order? Time is now 7:49. We'll adjourn.